In this video, we're going to talk about using the record history feature, and you'll see that it's right up here at the bottom of your screen. And if you do a right click on it, you'll see that there's additional options to it. So I'm going to go through different ways of toggling these options and doing different things. But the way I'm going to illustrate how to use the record history is by using a complex curve and creating a sweep. And so before we really jump into recording history, I just want to talk about proper ways of creating a sweep. And it's going to be very self-explanatory. So let's say we're creating a circle, and looking at this circle in relationship to this complex curve, you can see that it doesn't really line up in a way that is perpendicular to the orientation of this curve. So let me show you really quickly what that looks like. So if I do a sweep 1, I can use a rail, so I'll use this complex curve, and I'll need to select a cross section. In this case, we have this circle. So we'll use this to create a simple sweep. So there's going to be a few issues that happen here. One of them is this surface just doesn't really follow the rail the way we would want it to. But another problem here is the way it begins. It doesn't really follow it correctly because of this curve and because of the way it lines up. So one quick way to fix that is to, first of all, delete the existing surface, select this complex sweep, and all we're going to do is create what we call a pipe. So I'll just type in the command pipe. And pipe gives you a few different options. One of them would be the diameter. You can give it this option, thick, and a cap, and you can choose whether the cap is flat. So we'll just use the flat caps, and the diameter doesn't matter in this case. So I'll just press enter, enter, enter. And what you'll see here is it looked at the orientation of this complex curve and created a plane at the bottom. So this is pretty helpful to us because this plane is actually the orientation that we want this curve that we are sweeping. It's the correct orientation for it. So this is one quick way to figure out where this curve should line up, where it should be. And this allows you to create what we would call a construction CP, a construction plane. And you'll find that under, I think it's under View, Seaplane, construction plane. And so with a construction plane, you have different options. One of the most powerful one would be 3 points. But you can also do it to an object. So if you have, I think if you have a plane, it should work out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode this entire object, and then I'm going to select this plane, and I'm going to try to create a C-plane, construction plane, using this object. And as you can see, now our construction plane, meaning the X, Y, Z axis, is now lining up with this plane. So that's really powerful because if you have a simple profile, sure, you can go in and set up your profile. So that's nice, whatever. I don't know why it didn't, it did something strange, but so sure, it helps you out. It's better than trying to line it up manually. But it's more interesting once you start getting into complex forms. So let's say this profile wasn't a circle. Let's say this profile is something a lot more complicated. So let's say it's something like this. So now if we take something like this, and I'm going to scale it down because we saw that depending on the size, it could create issues wrapping around. Let's delete this. Delete this, we'll make a sweep, and the rail will be the same rail, but this time the cross section is going to be this complex shape. And so as you can see, because it is perpendicular to the curve's orientation, it wraps around in a super nice way and it really follows the orientation of that curve. So this is really powerful, but if we make an update to this curve, you'll see that it does nothing, it doesn't update. So we're going to go in, select the surface and delete it, and we're going to create some history to it. So how do you do that? You click on the history, and it's still not going to work because of the options we're using. Let me show you what happens. So we did exactly the same thing, and again, if we select this path that we're using, and if we show all of the points and modify it, it still doesn't update. The surface is not updating to this curve that we're using as a guide. So we look at our options again, and we'll check what is going on. It's not always recording history. Okay. So again, if you do this sweep 1, you'll see that you'll get the same issue one more time. And the reason for that is because there's one last option we haven't looked at. Yep. And it is the second one. So in order to use record history, you need to always record history. And you need to update children. Why do you need to update children? That's because recording history is literally recording every one of the features that you input. It's recording all of this. But if you want your actual surface, the geometry that you're actually building, if you want it to update, then you need to update the children. So knowing that, now we can do a sweep, and we can be confident that the rail and the cross-section will have construction history, meaning that if I take this sweep and I show all of the points and make some modification to this initial curve, the surface itself keeps on updating. So that's pretty cool. Now there's a lot you can do with it. This is definitely not the best way to use this feature. There's a lot more complicated things and interesting things you could do with it. But you can see how this could be really useful, because not only you can update this curve, which constructs this complex surface, and then you can see it dynamically. As you're making changes, you see the results. But on top of that, if you wanted to make changes to this curve, you can go in and you can select a point, move it, and the whole surface updates. Of course, there's some restrictions to it. If you make changes which are too complicated or too much distortion to a planar curve, it can have a negative impact on this surface. Like, you can have something that looks very nice, and by making changes to this profile, to this contour line, you can have self-intersecting surface as a result. So you have to be really careful of what kind of changes you're making and what kind of result you're looking for. But you get the idea. So again, one thing I wanted to cover here is, if you want to make this type of complex curve, a very quick way to figure out where you would want this curve, this profile to line up, one very quick and efficient way to do it is simply creating a pipe. And you can choose whatever dimension you want. If it's really small, sometimes it's hard to see, so maybe you want to increase that radii to something bigger, something like 10, because this surface here doesn't really matter since we're deleting it. We're deleting this pipe. What we are really interested in is this flat plane, because this flat plane by default is aligned to this complex curve that we're using as the rail for this profile. Now, there's another way to do it, which is very time consuming. What you would do is create a line, and as part of the line settings, you can make your line perpendicular. So if you make a perpendicular line to this complex curve, you can sometimes force it to be perpendicular to this line. And then if you look at this plane, you'll see that this curve actually is planar with this plane that we actually, we got in a few seconds by using the pipe command. But this gives you one of the axes that you can use to create your own construction plane. So it's a lot more time consuming because you're still not done after creating one curve. You have to do it again, you have to do it a second time, and you have to make sure it's perpendicular. So it is pretty complicated to do. Just more time consuming. It's more time consuming. And I forgot the next step. It's pretty difficult to do because you have to create another line, and this one I think you would make it tangent. So you click here, and then you create your tangent line. So now you have a straight line that is, you can see how this works, right? This would be perpendicular. So now you have basically the normal that is being used by this plane. And once you have that, then you can create another line and make this one perpendicular to a straight line. And of course, there's 1,000 ways you could do it. Yeah, there's just so many different ways to do it. But so in this case, now we have an axis and a line. Let's delete this. So we have a line that is perpendicular to another one. And if we wanted to, we can do a rotation of, a rotation 3D. Rotating axis from here to there. So we're rotating this curve by 90 degrees. And I made a mistake because I didn't copy it. So let's do a Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. So now we have a curve on top of itself. And we will do a rotate 3D using this axis that we created. And we'll rotate it by 90 degrees. And now you can see you have this beginning of a plane. You have your X, Y, Z axis. So if you did your CP plane, and let me run you through the process again, you can set a CP plane, and you can use something like 3 points or an object. So in the previous method, we used the object, and we used this plane. In this method, using the perpendicular lines and the tangent line, you can use 3 points, and you can define the origin, the X, and the Y axis, and the Z is automatically defined for you, so you don't have to define the Z axis. But so as you can see, it took so much time to create these 3 lines just to get this X, Y, Z axis. So I would highly recommend that you do the pipe trick. Just create a pipe, explode it, or you can extract the surface by using the right click and just extract the planes. And then this makes the whole process a lot easier. And one of the reasons why you would want this plane and this plane would be to create multiple profiles. Like let's say we have a profile up here that gets bigger, and maybe it has more points. I don't know why you would want to do that. Just want to show you that there's a lot you can do with creating these construction planes. And I definitely want to show you the power of using the record history feature. So yeah, let me run you through the whole process, and we'll do a sweep to illustrate our point. And so this time we don't want a sweep 1, we want the sweep 2. So I'm typing in the command, but you can go under surface and you can find the command right here, sweep 2. And again, we'll select the rail, second rail. We don't have one, so I think I used the wrong setting this time. Yeah, if we're going to use this process, then we'll have to use this as a rail, this one as the other rail, and the cross section would be this weird profile. And it's going to give us some really strange results because of the way I selected everything. In fact, that's probably the wrong way to do it. Let's see, can we do a sweep 1 instead? And cross section this one, second cross section this one. Yeah. So sweep 1 is still the proper method to use to create this shape that I'm trying to create, because it still can use a single rail and 2 profiles. Or you can use multiple profiles, you can also have one in the middle. Yeah. So let's just generate some kind of form, freeform, and you can kind of play around with these features. Usually freeform does a fairly good job. Global blending, you can see how it affects the shape. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it just doesn't do that good of a job. In this case, I think global shape blending is going to give us better results. So let's just go and hit OK. And as you can see, it can generate complex curves, but you have to be really careful about self-intersecting surfaces like this one. And that's where the record history command can be really useful, because now you can make updates to this curve. And let's say we just want to scale it. So you can select this curve and scale it. And everything updates, and you can see here it's not that good. So you can select the profile that we used. Let's delete that. You can select this rail, the rail that we used for this profile, and we can show all the points, and we can manipulate this point here, and we can adjust it until it works for what we're doing. So you can do very complex shapes, and you can kind of refine each of the profiles and the rail that you're using. So it's really powerful, and some of the things you can do with it are very it's really dynamic. It makes the process really dynamic. But I wanted to run you through one more process. And one thing I should show you is how to get out of the control plane. So let me show you that really quickly. We can go under the view, we go to the construction plane, Seaplane, and we will do undo Seaplane changes. And it doesn't do anything. So you can also access it here, by the way. If you do a right click on perspective or on the top view inside this panel, you can go to the set Seaplane, and you can undo Seaplane changes, redo Seaplane changes. I think the one we want here would be undo Seaplane changes. It's specific to the perspective view, so yeah. I think actually it didn't work. So I ended up getting a little sidetracked with these different options for the seaplane, but essentially when you're working with seaplanes, what you want to do is use this panel here. So I'm making a right click on this icon, and then it's giving me an entire panel. And there's a bunch of options. Of course, you can use the shortcuts to access any of these, but there's so many different options, and most of them you're not going to be using anyway. But the ones that I would recommend using is the save seaplane by name. Actually, this is not it. We want to be yeah, this one here, toggle named seaplane panel. So the reason why you would want that is because it's kind of difficult to toggle between this construction plane and this construction plane and the original one. So what you can do here is you can set this construction plane, save it, choose a name, and then you can choose to create another seaplane here. Let's say it is a seaplane to the object. So now we have this seaplane. We can save the construction plane as 02. And if we wanted to, now we can go back and forth and say restore the previous one. Oh, actually, it's restoring the original one now. Let's see, restore seaplane. So we have this one and we have this one. Yeah, that's okay. Worst case scenario, if we wanted that construction plane back, again, we could do the pipe trick. Let's just do that. Let's just do the pipe trick. So we're creating a pipe. We are exploding, or actually let's extract this time. So we'll click here, make a right click, extract this one plane, and we will create a construction plane from this plane. And And again, we can save it as whatever we want, 0.3, just to make it simple. And so it turns out that this construction plane is actually the original one. But let's say we cannot get back to the original XYZ, the world seaplane. Then one way to get it back very easily and quickly would be to use this feature here, which is set seaplane to the world top, meaning it goes back to the default seaplane. So this gives you the regular construction plane, the world construction plane that you get when you first start the software. So this is the default. And again, if you wanted to, you can save it and say this is the default. And this can be really useful because now you have your default one. Of course, if you have it twice, delete one of them. But now you can go back and forth between the seaplanes that you would want and the default one that you might want to go back and use for some other object. So yeah, this covers pretty much everything I wanted to cover. But there is one thing I wanted to show you, which is it's the whole reason why I made this video, right? I wanted to show you how to apply this stuff. So I'm gonna go in and delete everything. So it's just a quick demo to show you how to create construction planes and using the sweep. And it was all about the record history, which, what we did basically covered one use for it, but we really didn't go in depth as of how powerful it is. For example, if you have, let's say, an ellipse and you're creating copies of this ellipse, and for some reason you want to do, let's say, a loft. And I should probably mention that not every feature has the record history with update children compatible with it. Some of them just don't work. So you have to check out which feature works, which one doesn't. Most of them work, but I'm going to go over that in the next exercise. So let me show you exactly what you can do with that. So you can make it something precise, you can make it something really complicated where like maybe it rotates the opposite way. And again, because of this record history, you can make changes to adjust the shape as you're designing it, for example. But again, this is still not really the most powerful thing about this feature. Let me show you what I would use it for. So let's say for some reason someone is asking me to create some kind of knot, like a shoelace type of thing. So let's say we have this thing, and for some reason it goes like that. And we're gonna show the points, and we're gonna start manipulating this curve to kind of wrap around itself, and we'll just make it really simple, and we'll do a really bad job at it on purpose, of course. Let me show you why I'm doing that. So we've got the record history on. I'm gonna make a simple pipe, and that's not good. That's really not what I wanted. Let's just make it smaller in radii. We'll make it 1, and let's see, what does that look like? That's not very good either. Okay, let's simplify the whole thing. So if we have something that wraps around itself, and then it goes straight like this, then if we do a pipe, yeah, this is a lot more clear. We're going to use a different shading. Let's use the ghost. And so we have the record history on, and we have the update children on, which means if we select this curve and we show the points and manipulate the rail that we're using, the pipe should update. So this by default is pretty powerful, right? You can make adjustments to your points, And this makes creating some kind of knot or some kind of complex shape easy to do. So let's move this one the opposite way. So it's really dynamic, right? Like as you're moving things around, everything updates, and you can see it, and you can keep on changing it. So it's really powerful for things that need to be adjusted based on a parameter. But I'm going to take it one step further and show you what you can really do with that. Okay. And we're going to tighten up the whole thing. So I'm going to go in, get this inwards. And of course, if we are really picky about it, we can spend hours and just make it perfect, right? But for the sake of a demo, I'm going to keep it relatively simple and just make it clear. You know, by having more space, it makes it more obvious. I don't know. It's just more. It's easier for you guys to grasp the concept if I just move things around and keep everything nice and clean. Okay. Okay. So you've got this crazy thing, and we want to take it to the next level. So how do we do that? I'm gonna make this a little more complicated so it makes more sense. And move this one down, and move this up, move this down, and you'll see why I'm doing that. There's a reason for this. Okay, so I've got this strange type of knot, and I'm gonna go and run you through the same process again of creating construction planes. So let's say this is perfect. Okay, wireframe. There is one last thing that I don't like about it, it's intersecting, and of course I would not know that if I hadn't used the record history. So I mean, this already gives you an idea of how powerful it is just based on you know, just based on this condition where if you had to create it without seeing it, it wouldn't be dynamic at all, and you wouldn't know where this pipe is going to run, unless you get lucky, and you know, it doesn't take much. It's not based on your skills. But so anyway, this is a very dynamic way to create something complex like this. But we want to take it up a notch and change this profile. We don't want it to be a pipe. So let's explode this. And let's create a bunch of construction plane. So again, if you don't know where to find that panel, I would suggest that you go under this icon under standard. And so you go to the set construction plane menu thing. So you get this tab and this whole panel. And here you'll have the toggle named construction plane panel. And you'll have save by name. So we go under save by name. Wait, no. Yeah, this one. We'll go under the toggle name construction plane panel. And in here, oh, I made a mistake. In here, we can create additional planes. So the way it works is you select, let's say, a surface, like this one. You can set your plane by using this this one here, the set construction plane to object. And now we can create a different profile, but before we do that, you can save it. And you can keep it for later and toggle it, so you can restore the default one and go back to the one we just created. So you can go back and forth between different profiles, which again, it's really powerful when you're using the record history, because now you can change a profile to be different, you know, from one side to the other. As it sweeps around, you'll get different results, and you'll see why that's important in the next step, which I'm about to show you. But so we'll create another construction plane, and we'll save it again to have a backup of it, to be able to toggle from one construction plane to the other. And we'll just delete this because we don't really need it anymore. This was just, you know, it was just for us to get a good sense of what kind of curve, what kind of rail we want to use for this type of pipe that we're creating. So let's go in, and we can go in here and we can switch the construction plane if we want to. And right now we're using this one. It's kind of nice to keep the cap as a reference. So if you want to, you can create a new layer, call it something like construction, and you can use these caps from the pipe. You can assign them. I like to use this method here, but I know most people don't really like that. You can go here and do, you would change object to this layer. Yeah, that's one way to do it. The other way that I like to do it is I open this panel and I just click here to change object to layer. Or you can go here, click here, or click here. Yeah, usually I use this one, and the reason why I like this is because you can also create your new layer straight from this menu. Yeah, I don't want to get sidetracked too much with layers, but it is useful to create construction layers and curve layers and profiles. You know, just make your life easier when you have so many objects within a scene. But for now, I don't want to get sucked into it too much. I just want to show you some quick things you can do with it. So let's say this is some kind of rope. I'm going to scale this, and there's no scale to it. I'm just playing around with this form, but there's no actual precise dimensions to it. But then again, we do want to be somewhat accurate. So we'll do something like that, and we'll do an array. So I'm making it line up to some kind of center line. It's always useful to keep everything centered. It just makes it easier for you to understand. And from there, I want to create an array, and I like to type in all of my commands as you've seen. But I just want to make a polar array. So this one, array polar, using the center of this profile that we used before, and we'll make it, let's say, 3. Okay, and then the way I like to work with this is using the trim command. Trim, and we'll trim everything on the inside. Okay, so now we have this more complicated profile, and I'm going to join everything, copy it, and we're going to toggle the construction plane. And actually we want to toggle it from the top. We don't have to. Yeah, we don't have to. We can do it in perspective as well. Let's see, can we actually do it from the top and copy it? I haven't done that before. Yeah, we cannot. Okay, so we'll do that again. We'll go in here from the top, and we will create some kind of circle. We can make this one bigger, it doesn't matter. Or smaller. Yeah, let's make it smaller, that's fine. And now we'll make an array polar, again, using the center point, 3 of them. And again, the way I like to do it is to just use the trim command. Of course, there's other ways to do it. You can split everything, you can... yeah, there's just so many ways to do it. Okay, so join everything. Now you've got your two profiles, they're pretty similar. We can delete this cap, or we can toggle the construction layer. Okay, we will make a sweep 1 using this rail, and then the cross sections would be these two cross sections. And now we get this extremely complex thing, which, you know, it could be a rope, or it could be some kind of wire for some headsets or something. So yeah, sure, it's cool, it's nice, yeah. But you can go even further, because now you can select this, and you can rotate. And once you introduce some rotation to it, it means that as it goes through this rail, the profile itself is going to start twisting. So you can make some really dynamic shape by doing this technique. I'm not sure if you can, like, if there's a limitation to it. Like, for example, if you rotate it too much, I think there is a limitation to it. Let's see, if you do a sweep 1 using, oops, this, that, and that. I think it's natural sweep, okay. Freeform, yes. Global shape, blending, no. Okay, let's try these options instead, and what I'm going to try to do here is rotate this by a crazy amount, and I want to see if it randomly rotates the curve, or can it do something precise. Like, let's say we want it to twist on itself, like, I don't know, 5 times. Could we do that, or does it break? I have a feeling it's not gonna work because it doesn't really know which side is which. Yeah, it doesn't seem to work. It's not like a Mobius where it twists on itself. You can't really force that condition. I mean, one way to do it would be creating multiple sections, but for the purpose of this exercise, I think you get the point, right? You can have a rope that wraps around, you can have any profile that you want, you can have them be different sizes, and because we're using this record history with the updates, we have the whole thing updating, and so it makes it really dynamic. Yeah, the really cool thing about this is you can scale it until it touches itself, and the advantage of it is it's going to look very realistic if it touches but doesn't go through itself, if it doesn't intersect through its surface. So here it's intersecting, which means if I select this one and just make it a little smaller, it's going to be really dynamic how it updates, and now it doesn't touch anymore, which is pretty cool. So you can do some really complicated things, and you know, I only spent a little bit of time showing you this simple way of utilizing the record history, but of course you can spend more time and make it, you know, very tight knot or something, or maybe it's something else, maybe it's not even a knot. But so you can really get a sense of what's possible with this feature and when to use it. Although there is some things you want to watch out for. For example, at this time, if I make changes to the actual curve, so I'm going to go back under the wireframe display. If I select the rail and I make updates to it, everything is going to be fine. It's going to self-update. Okay, let's say we want this to go way out here. So you can see the surface updates. So that's nice. But then if we select a circle and we cut it, if we cut the actual surface, and then we make updates to this rail, we'll pull it, and it doesn't update anymore. So when you trim an object, usually you're not going to be able to keep the record history. Now what you can do is say history break warning. And so what this will do is when you trim this surface, oh, I went too fast. Let me redo and trim. And here it tells you history warning. The trim command broke the history on one object. So it told you that you no longer have your history with this surface. So again, you're going to find this feature under record history when you make a right click on it, history break warning. So this is really useful. Now this last option, it's something else with lock children. Yeah, so this is really powerful too, because what you can do is you can select this. I guess you don't even have to select it. Anything that has history is going to be locked by update. I mean, by default. whatever is being updated as a child, will be locked, which means I can move the curve, it's going to update. You can see how the surface updates. And then if I try to select the surface and move it, it doesn't let me move the surface, because otherwise I would lose the update children. It wouldn't update anymore. It would break that. So another thing you can do, as you saw, if I create a circle and I cut it, or if I cut anything away from the surface with a curve, it breaks the history. So one way to bypass that is to create an extrusion. And if you create an extrusion, and let's move this somewhere where it kind of makes sense to cut it. I think I'm gonna have to purge history purge. So history purge is really useful. It lets you remove the history and instead one object. So I just removed the history for this extrusion. So if I move this, I can, because before it would protect the children because it was locked. But if I make an update to this rail, if I move it, this one still has it's still a children with an update. So we haven't broken the history with this surface, but we broke it with this one. So this could be really useful. And again, the feature I used was history purge. And again, I like to type in all of my commands. So I'm not even sure why you would find this. For the history tools, I just like to type them in. Yeah, so I would recommend you do the same thing. And just type in the history commands there. I don't even know where you would find them in here. Anyway. I'm just trying to get this pipe to go through this shape. At the same time, I don't want it to go all the way through, because what I want to do is I want to pretend that there's some kind of shape. For some reason you want to have them intersect, and of course you would want to use the the children and the history to be able to see what kind of results you're working with. Okay, let's just make it this way, and I'll just scale it to be a little smaller, so that, well, what's going on here? Okay. Okay, so we've got them intersecting, and we're going to use, well, misclicked. We're going to use the ghosted view, and we're going to use this to trim that. And we're going to use this to trim that. And we didn't get any warnings. It didn't say anything. Oh. Did it do it? Yeah, so it broke this one. Okay, let's undo. So one way to use the construction history is, okay, let's show the points. If you have an object that intersects into another object that has history, then if I move this, it should update. And it does. But the problem with this is this object does not have history. So in other words, it doesn't really work. So you have to be really careful about that type of stuff, because let's see, what if we create history with this? So right now we've got update history. So if we extrude, extrude a surface, we'll extrude this surface to intersect with this one. Let's do that again. Okay, what if we do a boolean? So that's probably not gonna work either, but let's check it out. Yeah, it breaks both objects. Okay, let's undo. Let's try this again. Trim this. Enter, and it doesn't work. Okay, yeah. So as soon as you trim two surfaces with each other, then it would break the record history. So that's one of the main limitations with the history feature. You can create a nice sweep, and your main sweep is going to update, but then, yeah, then that's kind of your limitation. As soon as you start trimming, it's not going to do much for you. So there is somewhat of a commitment to it. It's not like software like SolidWorks where you can have history to every single step of your construction. This is not SolidWorks, this is surface modeling, so you're creating a surface and you can make updates to it. But at some point you have to commit to that surface and you can't just change a parameter and trim and untrim, and it's not going to update, not in this software. Some of the things you can do, you can do stuff like intersect. I think that one should work if you intersect two objects. Then you get a curve. If you update this curve, if you move points around, let's go in a different view. And I'm looking at the perspective view, moving it from this side, and you can see the intersection actually updates. So you just have to play around with it. Some of the features you can use very easily. You can trim and you can update. I mean, you cannot trim and update, but something like an intersection that creates a curve, you can get the history to work. So you have to be really careful about what you do. Just keep that in mind. So I hope you learned something from this video and that you can use the record history and get your surfaces to update and do what you want them to do. And I hope you're going to have fun building your own objects and playing around with the different construction planes and creating some really cool stuff. So this concludes the video, and I really hope that you learned a lot from this demo.